Your teeth are in worse condition than a medieval peasant's. Not whiter, not straighter. Theirs were a mess. But rotten, you are losing. Skeletons pulled out of medieval English graveyards show cavity rates well below ours, and the reason is not brushing, and it is not flossing, and it is not fluoride. It is that there was no sugar. Sugar reached Europe as a luxury spice. It was sold by the ounce and locked up with the pepper. If you were a peasant, you sweetened food with honey when you could get honey, and the rest of the time with nothing at all. So the disease that fills our mouths barely touched theirs. Their teeth still hurt though. Worn flat by coarse bread full of grit from the millstone. Cracked. Abscessed. And when a tooth did go bad, this is what happened to you. The first thing to understand is that nobody thought you had an infection. They thought you had a worm, not as a turn of phrase. A literal worm, living inside the tooth, chewing through it, and the pain you felt was the animal moving. This idea is old, older than England, older than Rome. There is a clay tablet in the British Museum, copied out in the 7th century before Christ and far older than that in origin, which tells the whole story. The gods finish making the world. Then a worm turns up and asks what it is supposed to eat. It is offered figs. It refuses them. It asks instead to be placed between the teeth and the gums so that it can drink the blood of the tooth. And then the tablet gives instructions for treatment. So this was not a story people told each other, it was a diagnosis people used. Which brings us to the cure, and to the strangest thing in this whole story. If there is a worm in your tooth, you do not fill the tooth. You get the worm out. And the way you get a worm out is smoke. You take the seeds of a plant called henbane. You throw them onto hot coals. Then you lean over the fire, sometimes with a funnel aimed at the bad tooth, and you breathe it in. Here is the part nobody expects. It worked. Henbane is stuffed with the same family of compounds we still use in medicine today. Breathe that smoke and you go numb and heavy and you stop caring very much about your tooth. But the pain relief is not the strange part. The strange part is what came crawling out of the fire. Henbane seeds are tiny. Inside each one is a pale, curled embryo, packed tight. Put them on heat and the embryos are forced out of the seed casing. Small, white, cylindrical, twitching in the ash as the heat pushes them. They look exactly like worms. So picture it. You are in real pain. You are half drugged from the smoke. And you are watching a handful of little white worms come wriggling out of the fire, one after another, right in front of you. And the pain fades. Because the henbane is working. Every single time, the theory was confirmed. The worm was real. You just watched it leave. Nobody was running a con. The evidence was right there in the ashes. When the smoke stopped working, there was one option left. You waited for the fair. Pulling teeth was not a doctor's job. It went to traveling tooth pullers who set up at markets out in the open in front of a crowd. Or it went to the blacksmith. The blacksmith had one advantage nobody else in the village had. He could make his own tools. The tool was called a pelican, after the bird because of the hooked claw. You set the claw over the crown of the tooth, brace the other end against the outside of the gum, and press the handle down until something gave way. Sometimes that was the tooth. Sometimes it was the teeth on either side of it. There was nothing for the pain. There was wine, there was more henbane, and there was somebody holding your head still. Then you went home and hoped it stayed clean. Because the thing that killed people was almost never the tooth. It was what came after the tooth. So the worm was not real. The smoke was a narcotic. The surgery was a man with a lever at a market. But the part worth sitting with is not how crude any of that was. They had a disease they barely suffered from, and a confident, detailed, completely wrong explanation for it. We have the explanation exactly right. We can name the bacteria, we can name the acid. We know precisely how enamel fails and why. And we have far more of it than they ever did. They invented the worm. We invented the cavity.